Greetings to the audience. Welcome to another podcast of Senjo's podcast series. I am your host, Dhanashri Valanchkar, a research assistant at Senjo's. Today, our topic for discussion is choke points and challenges navigating joint maritime security in volatile waters. And for the same, my today's guest is Dr. Pooja Bhatt. Dr. Pooja Bhatt is an associate professor at Jindal School of International Affairs, Jindal Global University, Sonipat. Dr. Bhatt is the author of the book titled Nine-Line, Deciphering the South China Sea Conundrum. Dr. Bhatt was a part of the prestigious Indian Navy history book, A Decade of Transformation, the Indian Navy 2011 to 2021, released by the Honorable President of India on Navy Day in 2022. Precisely, Dr. Bhatt was also a consultant with the Ministry of External Affairs in India and taught at the Rashtriya Raksha University in Gujarat. Besides working extensively on maritime security, policy and governance, particularly in the Indo-Pacific and the South China Sea, she writes on defense and Asian security architecture. Dr. Bhatt received her doctoral degree from the School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. She also holds an MA in International Relations and an MPhil in Diplomacy and Disarmament from JNE. She also has a diploma in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas, UNCLOS, from Yusu Academy, Korea Maritime Institute. It is an honor to have you here, ma'am.
Thank you for having me with you, Power earlier.
Our discussion today centers on shifting dynamics of maritime security, specifically how traditional naval power balances are being tested by emerging technologies and regional volatility. We examine the operational and legal transformations occurring within critical sea lanes of communication and analyze how these developments influence the strategic calculus for major naval powers. The focus will be on practical implications of asymmetric threats, the evolving interpretation of international maritime law, and the necessity of integrated joint warfare approaches in maintaining regional stability. So my first question to you, ma'am, is how would you describe Nine-Line? And how does the Chinese controls on Nine-Line impact India's maritime security?
Firstly, thank you for having me for today's podcast. I'm very happy in discussing about the entire South China Sea background. To start with, this is a very good question for a foundation start. Basically, when I wrote this book in 2020, it was Nine-Line, and we have seen it's very, very free. But China did expand it, and now it has called it 10-line in certain domestic documents. So what basically in this book tried to do, and my study on South China Sea tried to do, is to understand why China is within these arbitrary lines, so the conclusion that came out to be those lines does not have any arbitrary backing to it, neither legal nor historical. Everything is very, very arbitrary to now. And the entire claim emerges that China at one point of time claims that it had certain kind of belongings in South China Sea, and therefore it had some kind of control over Strategic Group of Islands and the Palestine Group of Islands. Given that territorial control, China wanted to establish certain kind of exclusive economic zone out of those islands. So that was a crux of it. The implication of that is, under the United Nations Convention of the Seas, any country can have only 200 nautical miles as its maritime jurisdiction, external. However, when we talk about South China Sea Island, it lies as much as 400 nautical miles away from the south of Hainan, which is the southernmost part of China. So effectively, China is expanding its maritime presence way beyond its legal jurisdiction. This is a very dangerous precedent when we see that how countries are using lawfare, history, geostrategic circumstances of other countries, because South China Sea is also surrounded by other, maritime nations, Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia. it is also taking away their maritime rights, their exclusive economic zones and their, canes and that zones away from those. And China, being the largest country in that region, is trying to exploit it. So, coming to the second part of a question, then how it is impacting India, it is not impacting India directly at the moment. Because even though we have a trade, we have 60% of our maritime trade which passed through South China. Till now, we haven't seen any closure by China of factory. But that is not to be said that we can't see some kind of such blockades in the future. So we need to be very mindful because our trade interests are, very much connected to the South China Sea and the geographic points there.
Correct. It's really insightful to know that, man. Coming to the next question, given the fact that India-China trade stands at around $138 billion US, will China manipulate the sea line of communication and through which most of its trading partners' trade flows? So, what would be your say on that?
See, when you compare India's trade, India is located in Indian Ocean, where one side on the western side you have these Strait to Malacca, Sunda, Lombok. Other side we have Hormuz and Bab el Mandeb. So it is surrounded by at least 6 to 8 choke points on both the sides. So for us, those choke points are very commercially important, economically very important. And when you compare the kind of trade which goes through the Strait of Malacca, is more than the Strait of Hormuz. 60% of our trade by volume and 8% by value goes through Strait of Malacca. Having said that, even China is also depending on those straits for its own trade also. So if China tries to block any of these, first of all, it looks highly unlikely because China cannot block those straits without harming its own commercial interest first. Because it is the largest exporter and it under BRI comes to export what? And if it blocks those straight, choke points, it will lose its own economic one. Second, these choke points are already guarded by the Southeast Asian countries, Malaysia, and other countries are actually, they're having a patrol, they call it Bad Integrity Patrol, BUPE, under which they also patrol those choke points. So it's not easy for any other third country to come to those gates and block. So overall, while it is highly unlikely that China might want to block it, it is a subject of intense tension between countries. And what if China tries to do something which might impact the trade, which can delay the trade if not block it? Because the moment you transfer the trade to the south of Malacca, Lombok, Sunda, a country in the last. So if you just move it to the south, it adds to at least 2 to 3 weeks of trade comes from, which adds to your, commercial value of the product going up and it cascade here. So it does. So overall, what I want to say is, even if China wants to do it, lock the entire, it cannot do so without harming itself.
Precisely. That's a point to note, I feel. Also, keeping in mind, like, the current geopolitics and the Iranian impact on the Strait of Hormuz, as you also mentioned, if despite losing its naval assets in China, is China in a position to impose similar blockades, and what should be India's response to the same?
When we compare to West Asian crisis, while it is a good template to understand and how countries can choke these strategic navigation points, we have to be very clear that these two are different templates. West Asia is a different template governed by several different kind of geographical factors, entities, states, whereas Southeast Asia is different. Where what we've seen in West Asia is the involvement of non-state actors and Houthis and others along with the state actors like Iran, and they help in blocking in that. So that is it. However, South China Sea is still very much governed by the states. There are still, organizations and institutions in place which are blocked. So, blocking part is different. But when you talk about whether India has a capabilities now, it does have certain better capabilities that it had at least half a decade back in terms of patrolling the entire region. It also, apart from having its own, naval assets, we also have better relation with the Southeast Asian country with whom we can, coordinate either at bilateral level or at multilateral level at the ASEAN level to protect that region from getting, any unilateral aggression in the region. We need to understand that it's not only the military reaction to any of the Chinese action, or they will get diplomatic reaction and the one-hatred reaction there, which a political reaction to this. And I think over the years, India has built all these connections with Southeast Asia in a better way, so that if certain of these, incident happens, it works in our favor that we can work with other countries to protect that region.
Definitely, I really do quite understand more about it now that said that. But China has already enunciated its hegemonic design in Southeast Asia, particularly in the littoral islands in South China Sea. How would it impact Indian maritime security, and what should India do in order to augment the naval capability, like Beaches Distance?
So, in terms of what China has done in South China Sea, as we started our conversation, there was a very lawfare-based approach, very historical approach to the entire, South China Sea. It's about the zone it wants to perform. So, South China Sea is seen as by China, it is seen as its backyard. It wants to control from foreign interventions to create its own zone of influence in the region. So, that is the mindset we are to create there. But whereas when it comes to India's interest, EMA, first of all, we have commercial interests, and we discussed just now. So, second, we have the political and diplomatic relations, good relation with most of the countries of the South China Sea littoral countries, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Vietnam, South Korea, Japan, name the country, and we have a good relationship. So, in a way, I think our maritime interest can never be hindered till the time China loss, if any of this, which lose highly like again, which are literated. So, in a way, what we have to understand, what we have to start thinking is how Chinese narrative over maritime domain is entire thinking that, if you control certain zones in maritime domain through lawfare, through military intervention, through your naval presence, how do you change that entire communication about these are inland roaming hormones? We are understand, right? These are the zones beyond your national jurisdiction, beyond your, not even 200, beyond your territorial waters. Seas are open for all, right? Everyone has the right to transit. So free and open navigation highways. No country should be allowed or given this opportunity to control those highways on their own. And therefore, this discussion that India has started about, just 2 days back, our External Affairs Minister, Jaishankar, who's in Middle East, he also said that India, proposes and supports safe navigation in the choke points. I think this narrative has to be built up that straits are international navigational highways, which are protected under UNCLOS, and they cannot be ruled by any single country. This narrative has to be strengthened. Countries have to think about how they want to look at UNCLOS or maritime internationality, at the domestic level for their own protection, at the regional level for the regional protection, and at the global level. What is the normative discourse? How do you want to use your maritime commons for the global good so that no single country will approach it? I think this is what India's maritime interest should be now. I think militarily we are much better at this moment.
And it's really an important point that you really highlighted about India utilizing the BOBCOM. I truly do understand that how important it is to have a mutual agreement on the distance between the maritime borders, precisely. But that brings me to another question again. The blockade and the free use of SLOC has recently gotten impacted to West Asia, despite the severe impact on Indian economy and disruption of energy supplies. India is still keeping a close watch. But despite having the naval capabilities to intervene, considering a similar situation arising in South China Sea, How does India hold the capacity to interfere over here then?
See, in West Asia approach, Indian approach in West Asia has been different because the kind of relation, our presence which was there in West Asia, our naval presence compared to our East Asian presence is less in West Asia, which is now we are developing in the past 1 decade that we can say. We are building more, diplomatic and military connections to these countries, West Asian countries. We are also doing more and more port hots. The Indian Navy is doing more port hots to West Asian countries, developing those kind of military interactions. You are trying to do more and more exercises in those countries. But historically, Indian presence has been limited to, military presence has been limited to countering the piracy or armed robbery, very limited action. On the other hand, when we are looking at Southeast Asia, from the very starting, our not only our presence, military naval presence has more, but our engagement also. We have had our port calls in Vietnam, Philippines recorded since 1960s. Earliest was reported 1964. So since then, we have developed this deep and broad engagement with the Southeast Asian countries. Why I'm comparing these two regions is because this also determines how I'm going to act in regions. Right? When you saw in Iranian case, India had to go bilateral to negotiate for its passage of its vessels. Because even though India is a part of Combined Maritime Forces, which is led by the US, based out of West Asia, there's little India could do. In high to present military presence, you have the forward basing of your naval presence on, but you just literally could do because you engage with the country different. You have a good relation with Iran. However, on the other hand, when you talk about South China Sea, you hold equally good relations with all the countries. Last to last, we have conducted ASEAN India Maritime Exercise Dino proposal. So we have a better home at the region in politically, diplomatically, military. So therefore, if India has to come together, good react in that region or take some kind of position, it would be at a more multilateral level, which would be very different from West Asia. So the templates here are too different. Therefore, India's position likely is to be very different.
That's a lot of information and a lot of insight for all our listeners today. It's really insightful to understand so comprehensively about these critical maritime corridors. I truly thank you for such a comprehensive review again, and we appreciate your time and expertise with us here today. And thank you for the audience to staying till the end. Please do subscribe and like. Thank you.